How do? Stevie? Stephen? Oh, he's on a mission, that lad. Don't know where he's going. On a pit site today, guys. Lofthouse Colliery pit site. A little bit about myself for all the new people to the channel. Not too much. Originally from Sheffield lad. First 40 years of my life almost spent in Sheffield. I was helping people long before I joined the prison service. I worked in psychiatric units for a company called NICE, Nursing in Secure Environments. That was started by prison officers from the Nottingham, Leicestershire area. You were like bank staff, working specifically with people with mental illness. I found it a very rewarding job. The company was well organised, well run. I never met any of the guys or lasses who were involved in running it, but like I say, very professional outfit, and they were always good by me. I specifically worked in a couple of forensic units that were like homes really for people who were incredibly unwell. Hazelwood House on the outskirts of Chesterfield and Annesley House in Mansfield. Had a little bit of a brain loss then. Before that, I did various voluntary jobs in the community, including in Sheffield, sometime working with people with eating disorders, young lads and lasses with anorexia and bulimia. You know, little did I know that 25 years later, I'll be trying to, along with the missus, help my own daughter with that terrible illness. Highest mortality rate of any mental illness, anorexia. Shocking. So those two forensic units, great grounding for anybody, great grounding for me. Very strange environments when I first went into them. I don't know whether they were purposeful built, like sort of small hotels. There were all lasses in there, they had their own rooms, there was a dining room, and the staff were amazing. 2 charge nurses, I remember. An older lady, a more mature lady, she was fantastic, you know, a real, you know, sort of caring human being, and a younger charge nurse again. They both really cared about the people in there. The people in there, you know, it was almost the last chance saloon. They had, some of them been to your Ramptons, Broadmoors and Ashworth high security hospitals. Some have been locked up pretty much all their lives. And yeah, on reflection, looking back, you know, I don't honestly know what to say. Anyway, I woke up this morning, that's why I'm talking about this. Early hours of the morning, and I was thinking about one lass. I hadn't thought about her for a while. She had schizophrenia. When I first went to the home, like I say, it was a very, very strange environment. You all right, boy? Very, very strange environment. It kicked off every day. It was quite a violent environment. There were more kick-offs than prison, and staff did the best they could. There was minimum use of force, quite definitely. You know, one lass, I remember spending a full 12-hour shift with a pin to the floor, along with other staff. Staff would put cushions under your head, under their heads, under the legs. You know, they'd relax, you'd talk them round, de-escalate, they'd get up, they'd go into the room, and she'd smash her head off a mirror or a wall or something else, or break something and try and cut herself, and then you'd end up restraining her again, you know, as gentle as possible. And that's what it was like. She might be like that for 2 days, and then she'd have a couple of weeks where she was all right. There were other lasses, there were a lot of self-harming, but this lass I was thinking about with schizophrenia, one of the files I read, I was told to read a couple of files. All the lasses in there have been abused in their lives. Some have been in forensic, psychiatric, hospital type places for years and years, 40 years plus. This lass had been abused by her father. She got married. She'd been abused by her husband. She had a natural beauty that people probably won't see. She dressed down, I would say, very drab. In this home in particular, right, the lasses, you know, they had everything a normal person would have in home. They had nice clothes. Clothes were bought for them. They'd be taking those that could shopping and the like. But she dressed down. a very sort of plain Jane. There was a proper sadness behind her eyes. She looked down, she never fully looked at you. I did, you know, speak to her every time I went on this unit. The younger charge nurse says one day, you know, she does like you, and I sort of smiled. She says, no, she does like you. She trusts you. I used to take her out in the garden. Again, you know, very little conversation. She would occasionally utter a sentence. I maybe sit in the garden for an hour with her. Yeah, and you know, you just try and give them some sort of, I don't know, honestly. But you know, an hour in the garden or whatever, I was happy to do that. You had to be careful in these units being a male. You know, never leave yourself isolated. The garden was cameraed up. But, you know, the sort of sadness there with that lass was, it was very real. I'll leave the end bit. I'll tell you about another lass who was there. I could never, the lass who had schizophrenia, I can't remember her name. But there was a lass there called Marie. If Marie is still alive now, she'll be in her 90s. Marie, again, is another incredibly sad story. She was abused by her parents. She was put under the ward of her grandparents, who then abused her. At 17, she killed both her grandparents. She was deemed insane, a word you don't hear very often now. And she'd been locked up for 40 or 50 years when I met her. Unlike most lasses in that home, a lot of the time she was unmedicated. I guess you'd call it institutionalised. Again, I got on with her really well. I spent a lot of time speaking to her, normal conversations about the outside world. You know, anything she wanted to talk about, I would talk about. Both them lasses, and maybe a dozen others that I met, you know, when you look how incredibly sad that someone spends all their life locked up in these places. You know, we often go on about prison and people think sentences are too long and the like, but these people, once they end up in sort of the mental health, forensic type world, can be there forever. You know, and they will become institutionalised, and the quality of life, well, in that home, them lasses, them charge nurses, all the other stuff, they were amazing. That was the really uplifting thing. They tried their very best. You know, one day you might go in literally, how many lasses were there? 15 upstairs, about 9 or 10, 25 total, yeah? So some days they might be 30, 35 staff. The next day they'd be 70 because they'd all be kicking off. Because one would kick off and start self-harming. Then they'd be on a one-to-one and somebody else would kick off. There was one lass, always had 3 lads, 3 big lads with her. Because when she kicked off, you know, she was punching, she would drop. I've seen her drop someone, you know, way bigger than me with a punch. But again, you know, it's about purpose and quality of life, and people did try in that place. So there was moments that were uplifting, and the staff were amazing. You know, anybody ever sees this, whoever worked there, you know, hats off to you. Hazelwood House, Annesley House. Anyway, towards the end, one of my last shifts, you know, I was off to join the prison service, incredibly sad. I went in that place and there was no atmosphere, it was dead. I could feel it straight away, it was horrible. It's like a shiver down my spine. I went upstairs where the lass who had schizophrenia and Marie lived. There was nothing. Nobody was talking. There was a common room with a TV. Nobody was in there. Everyone was in the rooms. Marie was in the kitchen. I went in, spoke to her, nothing. Yeah. They'd had a new psychiatrist. This psychiatrist had come in and he changed everyone's medication and they were over medicated. The young charge nurse, ooh, I remember it well. The young charge nurse was in the kitchen. I made her a drink. She couldn't speak. She was crying. Tell she'd been crying all day. Just terrible, you know. Purpose in life, guys. Everyone needs a purpose. So that place left a lasting impression on me. I think I'll do my life story in a few parts, you know, for the channel. I did obviously, my first book, Strangeways Prison Officer, was a memoir, but a lot of people don't know a lot about me. I had a couple of years, 20, 21, 22, well, you know, I could have ended up locked up more than once, so we're going to leave it there today. Makes me incredibly sad when you think about that, but again, you have to think that, you know, the people that worked in there did the best. There were some amazing people, and people are leaving the care industry in droves, whether it be care of the elderly, you know, nurses. It's just terrible. Stevie, come here, lad. Come on. Stevie? What are you doing? Come on, good boy. Thanks for coming, guys. I'll see you.